I want to talk about something deeply personal and very misunderstood: hormone replacement therapy. Or more specifically, what life felt like before I ever considered it, before I was ever even aware of it, ever knew what it was, before it even floated onto my radar. Um, I'm Minty Ray, and that's what I want to get into today. And here in this space, we have honest conversations about health, about aging, and everything in between, especially as it relates to menopause and midlife. This is a space where we name things so we can move through our midlife season um, with more clarity, more agency over ourselves, and without apology. So much of the conversation focuses on what happens after starting hormone replacement therapy. But what rarely gets named are the quiet struggles that come before, the slow unraveling that makes you start asking, what in the world? I do not feel like myself anymore. Before HRT, my body became unfamiliar to me. It was just like we just weren't vibing. I didn't understand her, and she did not understand me. Well, mostly, yeah, I didn't understand her. Like my body and mind were no longer speaking a language that I recognized. We were having an interaction that I no longer trusted. Like we weren't really friends, and it was increasingly disturbing. I couldn't rely on her, and I felt she was betraying me. The fatigue, too. I wasn't just tired, I felt bone deep exhaustion. Like I told you before, just a few years back, I believe it was about 2023, when I took off work for a month, thought I was going to just kind of refocus and get myself together for when I retired. Took off for a month and slept for the whole month. I didn't know what was happening. It was exhaustion that would make even simple things quite hard for me to get done. Um, and things were hard on me mentally. Processing shit was hard. Um, and no, I wasn't lazy, neither then nor now. I mean, I know you're not either. Um, but it was my energy. It was just like over time, just slipping away. And then when it was gone, it was flat, it was gone. And emotionally, too, my mind and body were just unpredictable. Even now, thinking about it, um, it is a little bit heartbreaking because when I recall it, my body takes me back to that sensation of just being so exhausted. I just was so depleted. And as for hormone replacement therapy, it's not a cure. It's not a cure all for aging, but for me, it was like a light switch. And it literally helped me to brighten up tremendously. Um, and I'm not trying to convince you to do it, but I'm trying to tell you how I felt before and how I felt after. So, at the very least, it's worth investigating whether it could help you too. Um, it's your health, it's our health, and no one else is responsible for creating a body that we love and that we enjoy. No one else is responsible for that but us. Anyway, also before, my mood would just shift out of nowhere. Sadness, anxiety, irritability, um, and I'd be left trying to make sense of it. It felt like navigating without a compass. That emotional instability affected how present I could be with people I love and with my own life. Sometimes I felt distant from them, even when I wanted to be connected. Oh my God. And physically, there were changes I couldn't explain, aches, discomfort. I even had frozen shoulder. And truly, I'm not convinced that it's fully gone, but and it's definitely better. Apparently, like, see, I can lift my arm up now, but I still have some residual. Apparently, though, it can be a symptom of declining estrogen. So I got to thinking and struggled to accept, you know, um, but I got to thinking, I was sure I wasn't going to age like this before I started aging like this. I felt like I'm not going to be aging in a way that I just keep falling apart. Yet I was. So I'd be wondering, is this aging? Um, well, I'm not embracing that. But the crazy thing is, although I knew I didn't want to embrace it, my body was slowly resisting me. And I know that I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn, whether things would change. And I sat in this space for years, actually too many years. Um, we're not told it's worth understanding your baseline, even in your 20s, your hormones baseline, that is. Um, in your 20s, that's when your hormone levels are at their optimal. So, knowing what your levels are then can be maintained relative to that level when they begin declining in our 30s. Now, I didn't do that. Um, I didn't get any kind of panel when I was in my 20s because I didn't know anything about HRT. And if I'm being honest, I don't know that I would have done that, but who knows? When things started to get bad and hormone replacement therapy and if it was promoted and talked about, and I was familiar with it and comfortable with it, and the hormones were safe, it's likely I may have. I'm definitely a proponent now. Um, and here we are now in January 2026. Now, I don't know all the ramifications. And if I haven't said it, I'm not a doctor. And I don't play one anywhere. Well, at least not in public places. Nobody can tell me what to do at the house. But I do have experience with perimenopause and now menopause. And I am definitely clear about what that feels like. And given how much better I feel in my body and mind, I do wonder how much more productive, how much more present, how much more um, baseline enjoyment I could have had over the last 15 to 20 years. Oh my God, not to mention the doctor visits that just never offered solutions. Just, you may have ADHD. You do seem depressed. Of course, that was accompanied with prescriptions that I couldn't bring myself to take long term because deep down, I didn't feel like those conditions were the real issue. Well, certainly not depression because just years before I was fine in my 20s, even in my early 30s. I was fine. I don't recall having a low level baseline or any sharp feelings of depression. Well, not until the erosion started and until my hormones started declining. And I didn't notice it at first, but over time, probably feel like I was late into my 30s. Um, and now, except when I miss doses, I don't feel any depression or even that heavy feeling of exhaustion. Although maybe a touch of ADHD, I mean, maybe that. Um, and even though I didn't think that was happening to me, I didn't have words for what was. Like, I didn't think that, excuse me, I didn't think that I was having that those experiences. But I didn't think I was depressed. I didn't think I was necessarily having a bad bout of ADHD. But I didn't have words for what was happening. But baby girl knew something was off, and I couldn't pinpoint it without help. I could go on and on. Mental fog, difficulty concentrating, just losing my thought mid-conversation. It's like my thoughts would just fly away from me like it's almost like I was choosing to swat them away because they would just be gone. And over time, that chipped away at my confidence. Um, these are the parts that don't get talked about enough. The silent internal shifts that happen before hormone replacement therapy ever enters the conversation. This period where women can be out of sync with our bodies and quietly searching for a way back to ourselves. For me, naming these experiences matter, not to rush into a solution, but to understand what was happening and to hold space for you to reflect too, to consider that when your body and mind are changing, we don't have to just say, well, that's aging, because aging doesn't have to feel like throwing the towel in or settling for a dramatically or drastically smaller version of yourself. For me, I don't intend to do that. No, I'm not trying to be 20. I've heard people say that to me before, but to think that is to think that I don't think I'm better now. Yeah, I wouldn't go back to the stress of it all. Um, but I am interested in being a super hot 56-year-old. Now that's debatable, and I don't want to hear about that. But um, at any rate, so in comes HRT into the conversation, and I started to wonder, could I benefit from this? I even wondered how difficult it might be for a woman who looked like me to get prescribed, given a healthcare system where we're managing symptoms, insurance coverage, and decisions that affect our work, our focus, and even our well being, all at the same time. This isn't about convincing or conversion. HRT is certainly not a one size fits all. But this conversation is about my experience, it's about our awareness, it's about listening to and honoring our bodies when they're communicating with us. Wellness is layered, you know, it includes fitness, stress management, support, and for me, HRT helped to turn my aliveness switch back on. It helped me find a path toward clarity, steadiness, and feeling like myself again. This conversation is here so you might find your own path in whatever ratios of health that make sense for your life. Maybe you're working full time. Maybe you're caregiving. Maybe you're parenting. Maybe you're retired like me. Wherever you are, this isn't about doing everything all at once. It's about listening to yourself and starting wherever you are. I'm glad that you could join me tonight. And I hope this feels like a space where you can find yourself and find what works best for you. This space of midlife. It's so sweet to have you here, and I'll see you next time.